Hello children, 21-year-old political expert here. In 1947, the Japanese Socialist Party controlled the House of Representatives and the highest office of Japan. In the big 2026, they have zero representatives. You could be watching this video today or 10 years into the future, and I'm 100% certain they'll have a figure close to that number. What the genuine fuck happened to them? This is the rise and fall of the Japanese Socialist Party. Smash that fucking like button. To figure out just what happened to the JSP, we gotta go back to before the war even started. Liberalism in Japan had a very rocky beginning. What I mean by that is that the first Socialist Party in Japan was banned just after 24 hours of its existence. There were many different socialist parties in Japan during this period. They usually last a very brief amount of time before the cops show up and ban them. This party straight up lasted just 2 hours before they were shut down. One of the more important pre-war socialist parties was the Labor Farmer Party, but due to internal tensions, the party pretty much died. The left-wing socialists wanted to bring in more communism, while the right-wing socialists wanted no communism. Long story short, the party split into two, later three when the moderate right of the Labor Farmer Party split off to form the Social Democratic Party. And after the Labor Farmer Party was banned by the government, the Proletarian Masses Party was born. The party existed for only 2 years, and in the span of that, 3 more parties came. Don't worry, it gets even more complicated. The Japan Labor Farmer Party, not to be confused with the Labor Farmer Party or the Farmer Labor Party, split from the Social Democratic Party because they were too right-wing. The National Democratic Party was formed when this guy, Miyazaki Ryusuke, left the SDP to form his own party. And on the other hand, the Japan Masses Party was created when the Japan Farmers Party, Japan Labor Farmer Party, the Proletarian Masses Party, plus these 4 combined into one mega party. And then on July 1930, they, alongside the National Democratic Party and the National Conference for the United Front of the Proletarian Parties, plus the merger factions of the Labor Farmer Party and the Social Democratic Party, established the National Masses Party. The next year, on July 1931, the new Labor Farmer Party, the merger factions of the Social Democratic Party, and the National Masses Party merged to form the National Labor Farmer Masses Party. And on July 1932, with the Social Democratic Party finally combined into the Social Masses Party, one of the big players in pre-war Japan. So, what happened to it? After initial successes, due in part because infighting stopped and many were dissatisfied that the military kept expanding into Asia and also into our lives. Also, the middle class thought they were the only party willing to fight the Zaibatsu. Many believed that the Social Masses Party would be the party that would stop the increasing militarism in fascist Japan. Was the socialist revolution the party dreamt of finally going to happen? Well, no. To make a long story short, the party was curb stomped by the government into the Imperial Rural Assistance Association, the one-party state Japan during World War II is famous for. It was formed to increase the effectiveness of Japan's overall war effort, with the intention of establishing a totalitarian one-party state like Germany or Italy during this time. Oh yeah, also every other leftist party was banned during the Popular Front incident. So up until this point, there seems to be 2 things pushing the socialists back: infighting and government suppression. You would think that in the post-war era, they would learn from their mistakes and improve how the party operates. So World War II ended, Japan lost, and during the US occupation, there was a surge of support for left-wing politics driven by a public desire for post-war change, economic distress, and a labor movement crisis. In November of 1945, a group of leftists formed the Japan Socialist Party, because it was never such a perfect time to do so since, they could do that now. A leftist middle-of-the-road party, count me in. In the 1946 election, they won 93 seats and 17.9% of the total vote. In 1947, they won an astonishing 143 seats, and Katayama Tetsu became the prime minister after the big 3 parties formed a coalition. I like leaders with strong-looking names. They would never reach this high ever again, because during this administration, infighting between different political factions within the JSP caused the Katayama cabinet to collapse. When they first won the election, General Secretary of the JSP, Nishio Suehiro, was like, "No fucking way, we are totally not ready for this shit." And problems soon emerged as time went on for the Katayama cabinet. The most obvious thing is just the makeup of this coalition. None of these people have any sort of common grounds. There were conflicts over price control, taxes, and a proposed budget, so the JSP had to concede most of its socialist policies just for the cabinet to even function. A cabinet, mind you, that looks like this. Every different color suit on the screen are politicians fighting on issues that people just want a solution for. Nishio, who feared that an unprepared JSP would not be able to properly govern, originally wanted the previous prime minister to be in charge while the JSP controlled the diet. But this guy was like, hell no, I'm working together with you fucking lefties. Good luck out there, bitch. So for the whole 8 months of the Katayama cabinet's existence, Nishio was a mediator between the different factions of the coalition. To understand how fractured this cabinet is, here's the coal mine nationalization controversy. A major crisis when a bill to nationalize coal mines was introduced. The left was like, the government should seize the means of production. And the right was like, no, the communism, we should aim for a liberal economy. And it ended with a bribery scandal with multiple arrests, including future Prime Minister Kakue Tanaka. The bill was heavily revised in a way that was basically a failure for the socialists, and the diet became even more predatory as a result. The Liberal Party just downright combative. Katayama had traded away most of his socialist principles to win the support of the conservatives for his coalition, so the party's left wing openly criticized the government's policy direction. After some internal bickering, due to the agricultural minister keep fighting over economic issues, some right-wing members split off to form the Social Reform Party in protest over the purge of the agricultural minister, Rikizo Hirano, and the cabinet died soon right after. Voters lost confidence in the Socialist Party, which led to the takeover of the government by Shigeru Yoshida. Most who remained, there was also big tensions between the left wing and the right wing within the Socialist Party. The right wanted to be a party for everybody, while the left wanted the party to be a class party based on the working class. On the issue regarding the ratification of the Peace and Security Treaty in San Francisco, the left socialists demanded a complete neutrality and opposed the security treaty, while the right socialists were more willing to accept aspects of it, because they thought remilitarization was inevitable anyway. This would eventually culminate to the party officially splitting to form the Left Socialist Party and the Right Socialist Party. So because of that, and also a bribery scandal which tarnished the government as a whole and so the JSP's image, they lost about 2/3 of their seats in the parliament. By 1955, despite being the main opposition to the governing party, which is now the LDP, they could only get half the number of their seats. And so, the JSP would be the second largest party in every election for the rest of their existence with a few exceptions. In 1955, they re-merged because if they didn't, they wouldn't have a chance of ever winning again. In the year 1960, the Japan Socialist Party split again due to internal conflicts over how to handle the Anpo protests and whether to cooperate with the Japanese Communist Party. Japan was now led by this guy, and this guy is a fucking war criminal. And not even a cool war criminal. He's one of the most unpopular, elitist, corrupt prime ministers we've ever had. He wanted to revise the US-Japan Security Treaty and the Constitution. This was immensely unpopular, because if he's in charge of revising, that means being a pawn in the Cold War and another militaristic police state. Goodbye, democracy. The left wing, backed by labor groups like the General Council of the Trade Unions of Japan and the youth factions, clashed with the right wing led by Suehiro Nishio. After failed attempt to purge Nishio's faction, the right wing broke away and formed the Democratic Socialist Party in January 1960. The defection would take away votes from the JSP till the very end, about 25 seats. This failure got Chairman Suzuki Mosaburo to resign, and Asanuma Inejiro was elected to be his successor. As the date of the vote for revising came, there came a point where the Diet was fighting Cactus Jack McDonald's ex Travis Scott Nike Air Max, and the police had to be called to quell the opposition. With the opposition gone, Kishi immediately passed the legislation without them. This led to the largest protest in Japanese history. A fuck ton of people hated Kishi and also Eisenhower for dragging Japan into the Cold War. Although Kishi was successful in pushing the revised treaty, he resigned like a bitch and Eisenhower's planned visit to Japan was cancelled. That's amazing. Asanuma was popular with the people, and this next guy literally said something along the lines of, I think the poor should just fucking die. Gonna be a big win for the JSP, right? Asanuma was stabbed to death by a 17-year-old ultra-nationalist. This would really devastate the JSP because Asanuma was a really charismatic guy, loved by a lot of people. Many believe that if Asanuma, a martyr who acted as a mediator between the left and right, had not been assassinated, the Socialist Party might not have been so disproportionately leftist and still be a rival to the LDP. You think literally dying would bring in some sympathy votes for the JSP, but Ikeda's heart grew 3 sizes that day, and he transformed from an out-of-touch elite to a sympathetic type of guy. Probably had something to do with seeing a man die in front of him. And due to this metamorphosis and his popular income doubling plan, voters turned on the JSP because it was too good to pass by. In the election of 1969, the JSP lost about 6% of the votes from the previous election. They would never recover from this loss. So now that we're halfway there, why as the main opposition did they get less than half the votes of the LDP, while other first world nations have a decent balance between their left and right parties? The first reason is that they're severely misunderstood by the demographic that probably should be interested in voting for a leftist party. You got farmers, aka the sickle part in the hammer and sickle. The JSP initially gained some support in rural areas because it had spent years fighting for tenant farmers before World War II. After the war, land reform gave land to tenants, fulfilling many socialist goals, but the reform was mainly carried out by the US occupation and bureaucrats, and not the JSP itself. The JSP then struggled to adapt a whole bunch of policies which made the party look just as if they'll acknowledge your issues but won't do anything about it. As a result, many former socialist rural supporters shifted to the conservative parties, which were better at delivering concrete benefits and working with state bureaucracy, which is another thing the socialists sucked at. They had zero connections with people who run the country, unlike the conservatives. Same kind of logic for regular workers. Under the conservatives, Japan's income and GDP grew exponentially, so why stop voting for something that's working, you know? The JSP remained too ideologically rigid and disconnected from practical rural issues. Hence, the rural shift to conservatism. The second reason is how much the party leans towards Marxism. This isn't a criticism of Marxism, but as the main opposition, they should have capitalized on being a strictly social democratic party instead of the jumbled up amalgamate they were seeing for basically most of its existence. So they really suffered reaching that broad appeal that the LDP got. That's also why the Democratic Socialist Party consistently steals so many votes from the JSP for a vestigial twin third party. And it's cause they're appealing as a Western-style Democratic Party like the American Democrats or the UK Labour Party. You know Japanese politics is fucked when the bar is the Labour Party. The third reason is the constant infighting within the party kept it from moving forward. You already saw several examples throughout this video of internal fighting between the left and the left right leading to poor results. But this next story really exemplifies everything wrong with the JSP. This is the former JSP leader Eda Saburo, the guy after Asanuma. At one point, he was one of the fastest rising politicians at that time. His moderate form of socialism called Eda Vision was immensely popular with voters all over Japan. But when the Marxist faction of the JSP heard of his vision, they called it imperialistic catering to the West, and so they forced Eda to step down as the Secretary General. Eda's main opposition was this guy, Kozo Sasaki. This is a real excerpt. Small in stature and possessed of a fiery temper and a thick rural Tohoku accent, he was a loudmouth and a charismatic figure named Kozo the Ogre. He would fight Eda for the control of the party and its platform, while Eda Vision would expand the party's base by pursuing policies that would appeal to the yellow-collar workers and farmers. Kozo the Ogre thought that the only solution for raging against the machine was to have a base formed of the urban proletariat. Eda stepped down, forming the Socialist Democratic Federation in the process, and he was eventually able to step up in 1965. His ideology was so fucking out of touch, they lost 4 seats when that election cycle expectations were high. And that he was booted for Tomomi Narita, who wasn't even that popular, so they kept tumbling more and more. To put in perspective on how much better the JSP could have fared if Eda was its leader, he was a household name after a televised debate among the LDP and the DSP. He was known for his mild and gentle character and was well liked by many people. The LDP reportedly warned, if the Socialist Party makes Eda its leader, the general election could become dangerous for us. But my socialist revolution, buildings must thrive, said the ogre. Man, the left in Japan does so fucking poor all the time. It's almost like there's an external organization that consistently sabotages the left and promotes the conservative agenda. Reason number 4, the CIA. A lot of Japan's post-war politics has been carefully constructed with the cooperations of the CIA. Originally, the United States was alright with the leftist direction Japan was heading after the war, but since the Cold War started, there was a reverse course in policy leading to the suppression of the left and the promotion of the right. The release of thousands of conservative war criminals, CIA. The merger and subsequent promotion of the LDP, CIA. JSP breakaway parties, CIA. To make a long story short, your right-wing government in the country you're watching this video right now in, Filipino, was probably orchestrated by the United States to promote class disparity and suppress liberalism. Dun, 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 dun. 1986, they only got 84 seats. Meanwhile, the LDP recovered from their previous loss of support and were 3 times as popular. So what happens here on out then? After Masashi Ishibashi's resignation following an unsuccessful party transformation and subsequent defeat in 86, Doi Takako became the leader of the Japan Socialist Party. Her blunt opposition to the proposed consumption tax made her pretty popular, even winning the 1990 election. Their high didn't last long though. Internal attacks and major local election losses caused her to step down as chairwoman. Speaking of political assholery, where's the LDP? At this time, the LDP was in the midst of its many scandals and was experiencing a decent bit of failure, so for a short time, the LDP showed great weakness. And for the first time in Japanese election history, it was anyone's game, and the winner takes it all, baby. Welcome to the greatest race in modern Japanese history. 1993, baby, the Hunger Games of Japanese election occurred. If the socialists can just beat the LDP in the lower house, they lose the last piece of control they have in government. So, how did it go? The LDP still got a shit ton of votes, but not enough for a majority government. So everyone else was like, the enemy of my enemy is my friend? Sure, why not? And so all these parties formed the greatest coalition in political history just to take down the LDP. These people who don't have much in common except for the fact that they share the same enemy, which, what could go wrong? Japanese Communist Party kind of sat this one out because of like pride or something. Alright, now that we won, let's choose a leader. Who should be our glorious leader? Eeny, meeny, miny, you. The leader of the Japan New Party, Hosokawa Morihiro, was chosen to be the first prime minister since 1955 to not be LDP. So what did he do? Pro, he was a very good diplomat. Con, he was forced to resign in disgrace after he was caught accepting an 100 million yen loan bribe from a fucking trucking company linked to the Yakuza. There was also this funny thing where the coalition was debating how much to increase the consumption tax. Nobody really liked it in the first place, but the new government was not only keeping it, but also increasing it. The JSP was like, don't fucking increase it, man. But they still raised it to 7%, which was such a blow to the coalition they retracted a day later. Sorry, JSP. Alright, let's decide on a new leader. Eeny, meeny, miny, you. I'm the largest party, why can't I lead? Cause you're a fucking commie. Like that guy over there. The leader of the Japan Renewal Party, Hata Tsutomu, was chosen for some reason. So in response, the JSP left the coalition, meaning nobody has the majority anymore. New Party Sakigake left as well because everyone else was literally conspiring against them. 2 months, that's how long this guy lasted. So who's going to lead now? That was the question on everyone's minds. There was a vote. And guess what? The JSP won! Let's fucking go! Asian Joe Biden, Murayama Tomiichi, was elected as the 81st Prime Minister of Japan after there was a grand coalition between the JSP and the LDP? I know this sounds like a trick. And that's because it sort of was. The coalition was described by the New York Times as a lopsided deal that left Mr. Murayama at the mercy of the LDP. While the LDP was regrowing their support, the face of the coalition, the JSP, was taking blame for the couple of bad things that were happening in the country. But other than that, I think the JSP was doing a decent job. The height of his premiership came at the 50th anniversary of the end of World War II, where he gave the first real apology to the victims of Japanese aggression and imperialism. Man, the LDP was really pissed about that. But many foreign countries, other than South Korea, appreciate the statement. Even China was like, yo, this guy, he's the fucking GOAT. So the JSP is at their greatest high. What happens next? Remember all those parties from the first Grand Coalition? Well, about here in the timeline, they all got together and formed a new Frontier Party. Totally killed the JSP in the 1995 Japanese House of Councilors election. Also, remember how the JSP got into a coalition with their greatest rival? Well, turns out betraying your voters and party members by making key core policy changes to be the enemy's puppet wasn't such a great idea. Some members of the party left to form the new Socialist Party Japan. Murayama resigned as prime minister, and the same year, JSP decided to rebrand as Social Democratic Party Japan, which nobody cares about. Since his rebrand, they third-partied themselves so hard they've been taking L's after L's, since most of their voters moved on to other parties instead before the CDP became the JSP's replacement today. How are they doing? Terrible. Not even in a funny way, it's just fucking sad. I mean, so there you have it. The JSP kept shooting itself in the foot until they hit a cartilage. I like to call this party the 007 party. 0 brand recognition, 0 representatives, 7 years to die off.
私たちは今どんな時代に生きているんでしょうか。一見穏やかな日々の暮らしも揺れ動く情勢とともに大きな曲がり角を迎えています。平和であることの安心、働くことの安心、育まれ尊ばれることの安心、そんな当たり前の安心な暮らしが隅っこに追いやられようとしています。強い者だけが生き残ればよいという政治でいいのでしょうか。平和、年金、雇用、 安心な暮らしを支えるのは憲法です。社民党がいます。
Tune in for next time when I explain why the LDP is old, corrupt, and gay.